911, what's your emergency?
Help! Somebody, please help me! There's an alligator attacking my neighbor, Julia Banks!
In the idyllic, sun-kissed town of Clearwater Springs, Florida, where dragonflies skimmed across ponds and orange blossoms perfumed the air, something unimaginable unfolded. It was a place known for peace, not primal terror. But one summer afternoon, tranquility gave way to tragedy. Julia Banks, a passionate wildlife rehabilitator, discovered that love cannot override instinct, and that nature, no matter how cherished, remains wild. For 5 years she raised Reef, an American alligator she believed had bonded with her. She nurtured him from a vulnerable hatchling into a colossal creature of prehistoric power. To Julia, he was more than a pet. He was a companion, a symbol of connection between worlds. But that illusion shattered when trust met teeth. This is the story of Julia Banks and Reef, a story of devotion, denial, and the devastating consequences of underestimating the wild. You're watching Animal Reckoning, where shocking true encounters reveal the perilous line between affection and danger. If you find this story gripping, like, subscribe, and share. What you're about to hear is more than a cautionary tale. It's a wake-up call. Julia Banks was a vibrant, driven Urserbod-year-old with a heart that beat for animals. Raised in Clearwater Springs, she was known for rescuing the forgotten, the broken, and the wild. Her small home doubled as a wildlife haven. Raccoons, owls, possums, and egrets passed through its doors. She treated each with tenderness, documenting her efforts on social media with growing admiration. But Reef was different. She found him in the summer of Artsenling Isherbad, barely 6 inches, long, chirping weakly near the muddy banks of the Appalat River. He was a striped, fragile baby, likely orphaned. While most would recoil from such a creature, Julia saw vulnerability. She lifted him into her arms and wrapped him in a towel. Her heart already committed. From that moment on, Reef was no longer wild. Not in Julia's eyes. Julia's passion turned professional. She secured a wildlife rehabilitation permit that allowed her to house Reef indefinitely. Initially, she kept him in a temperature-controlled indoor enclosure with heating lamps and a shallow pool. She hand-fed him turkey mixed with supplements, tapping the enclosure to build feeding cues. By the time Reef reached 3 feet in length, he had outgrown his indoor habitat. Julia moved him outdoors into a larger space with a kiddie pool. At 4 feet, the kiddie pool became a repurposed in-ground swimming pool. She swam with him regularly, believing these shared moments deepened their bond. Social media documented it all. Photos of Reef resting his head in her lap. Videos of him responding to her voice. Friends noted how he followed her, how he closed his eyes when she scratched his snout. Julia often said he had imprinted on her. She believed she wasn't just his caretaker, she was his mother. As Reef grew to over 7 feet and sambyte pounds, wildlife officers grew increasingly concerned. His sheer size, muscle mass, and territorial behavior were alarming. Kenneth Lyles, a seasoned field officer with the Florida Wildlife Commission, made multiple visits to Julia's home. "Oh, he's not a dog," he warned her plainly. "He's a predator." Neighbors had noticed more aggressive behavior. Hissing, tail slapping, lunging, behaviors that Julia dismissed as playful or misunderstood. On social media, she continued to post reassuring videos, brushing aside warnings as fear-mongering. He's calm around me, she'd say. He trusts me. That's all that matters. No, but to trained experts, Reef's behavior wasn't affection. It was conditioning. His instincts hadn't been erased. They had simply been delayed. August Sherbath, Arsenling Arsersan. The air was thick and unrelenting, clinging to everything like a wet cloth. Julia carried a pool skimmer and a bucket of cleaning tools to the backyard. Algae had clouded the pool, and like dozens of times before, she intended to scrub it clean. Reef floated in the shallow end, motionless, eyes half closed. He had eaten earlier 2 whole chickens, but something was off. His body was taut, his tail slightly twitching beneath the surface. Julia entered the water, unaware of the danger coiling beneath. She reached forward with the skimmer. Suddenly, Reef surged. His tail swept her legs. His jaws clamped down on her thigh with thunderous force. Julia screamed, a sound so sharp it pierced fences and windows. Then came the death roll. He spun violently, dragging her underwater. Murky water turned red. Neighbors rushed to their windows. Clara Monroe, next door, called Julbite Isher with trembling hands. "She's not moving," she cried. "There's blood in the pool." Within 8 minutes, paramedics, police, and wildlife officers converged on the scene. Reef was still thrashing in the deep end. Officers wielded long poles, using coordinated precision to subdue the massive reptile. Julia's body floated motionless. Paramedics waded in cautiously, pulling her from the water. Her leg was mangled. Deep gashes marked where teeth had torn muscle and bone. Her chest barely rose with labored breaths. She was rushed to Clearwater General. Doctors fought to revive her. But the trauma was too severe. Her lungs were waterlogged. Blood loss was catastrophic. Julia Banks was pronounced dead at WUV, CSHRP.M. News spread like wildfire. Vigils were held in the town square. In the town square, hundreds came, holding candles and photos of Julia, smiling beside a young Reef, back when he fit in her arms. Colleagues from the Wildlife Center spoke through tears. "She gave everything to animals," one said, but she forgot the line between care and control. Reef, captured and sedated, was euthanized per state protocol. A necropsy later confirmed he was healthy. He hadn't attacked out of illness, only instinct. Could an abscistus true lax? The community mourned 2 lives, one of a woman who gave too much, and one of a creature never meant to be tamed. The tragedy ignited debate. Lawmakers proposed stricter regulations. Wildlife experts appeared on national panels. Dr. Marcus Lanning, herpetologist, warned, "Domestication is a myth. These creatures are born with instincts we can't override." Dr. Parcher Leah Torres analyzed the behavior Reef had eaten, making him territorial and reactive. Julia misread calmness as loyalty, but Reef saw her as an intruder, not family. "People see calm as love," Torres said, "but in predators, calm is just stillness before motion." Julia Banks wanted to save the wild, but in trying to tame it, she lost her life. Her story is more than tragedy. It's a reminder, nature is not ours to mold. Love doesn't erase instinct. Affection doesn't equal safety. Reef wasn't evil. He was wild, and wild things belong where they're free to be what they are. Let Julia's memory be a warning. A flickering candle burns at her memorial, beside a locked gate now marked, "No exotic pets allowed." The lesson is written in blood and water. May it never be forgotten.